All right, let's try this. Let's try this again. I've got my flat layers here like this. Okay, and we're going to come in and paint over the top of it. So I am in I am in Adobe Fresco on an iPad Pro, 13-inch iPad Pro, and you can kind of see we've got different layers here. Previous video, I did did the whole flatting thing with it or whatever. But now we're going to get to the fun part. This is the part that I really enjoy, um, just because it's fun. So what I've done here is I have an entire layer that is just these houses. I can come in here and you can see each one of these has different flats and things, and so all that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer on top of all of that and hit this little button and it applies that layer to the thing. So let me show you just with a really bright color what this is going to do. So I just take red and I color over the top. You notice that that red only shows up in that, but if I undo that, you can see that that red's everywhere. Okay. Also up here, you can change the blend modes. So if I put that to normal, you can see kind of what's going on. So I'm going to take this, put it to overlay, and I'm going to play with the transparency a little bit later. But right now, I'm going to come in, I'm going to clear this layer, and I'm going to do my favorite thing to do in Adobe Fresco and use the watercolor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and I've got a couple different things going on here. Okay, so you've got hue, saturation, and brightness. You also have transparency. Okay, and I can come in here and I can increase or decrease the flow. I can increase or decrease the water flow. But the cool thing about transparency is you're increasing and you're decreasing not the amount of water that you're putting down, but the amount of pigment. And so if I come in like this, and let's say I grab a blue, then I can start kind of painting, little shadows, and it'll bleed, and I can come back in, and I can wash some of that out on the edges, and it'll get more or less, pigmented based on the colors that you're choosing, and it's mixing with everything underneath. And I might come in here and just drop my opacity down a little bit, but I can also come in and I can hit like a white, and I can sort of wash this out a little bit and make it a little bit brighter. And so it's just a really nice way. It's like all the fun things about watercolor with none of the annoying things of having to mask stuff off and things like that, because I already did that digitally before. So I'm going to warm some of this up and add some yellows in to the front here. Double tapping your Apple Pencil will zoom in and zoom out of something. So as I zoom out, I see that that's way too dark. So I'm going to come back in, and I'm just going to lower the opacity of that. I'm just going to kind of wash this out a little bit. It's just a lot darker than I want it to be. So I'm just going to come in and add a little bit more pigment. I'm just going to kind of wash it out, because I don't want it to be so blue. Okay, come over here, kind of spread this a little bit, and then let's get ourselves some dark underneath for the shadows. And I love the bleed, and I love the way it kind of blends and stuff. So I'm gonna kind of gray some of this stuff out. If it hits too hard, you can kind of just mix it a little bit by adding some water, and you'll notice it kind of flushes some of that, kind of spreads through the water. Bring this back up and add some pigment in there for that shadow. Okay, that's all right. Over here, I'm just going to paint in a little bit of dark on these walls. I think I'm going to make my, let's see if I kind of warm up my darks a little bit. And some of these redder, warmer colored sides. Just gonna I want it to be quick and kind of painterly. I'm not super interested in it being perfect. So I'm going to kind of have some of these mixing areas where I've got my warms and cools kind of bleeding together, and I can get some of those kind of purples in between. And it's too dark, so I'm going to come back again and brighten this up. Very bright color. That'll kind of bring it up for me. Just to be brighter, I'm going to just wash it out with some white. I can shrink my brush down a little bit, so a little bit more precise. And now I'm having a little problem because it's kind of just all kind of blurring together. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to dry this layer. So you can come in, you can dry the layer, and then it'll start painting it as if it's been dried overnight. So I can be a little bit more precise with some of these areas that I want to brighten up a little bit without it bleeding everywhere. I'm just going to lighten that area up just a little bit more. Try to wash out some of those reds. Get that color contrast to the blue. I'm going to take my pigment down quite a bit and just lighten this just a touch. I've got some issues over here that I want to clean up, so I'm going to take this and just spread it a little bit on that side there. But I don't so much like it there, so I am actually going to erase just right on this edge. Another thing that you can't really do super well in actual watercolors is erase things. So kind of nice to be able to do that. Let's come in. Also, this this palette is super useful because you can come in and just use your most recent colors, which is really nice. So I'm just going to kind of warm up the front of this a little bit. And it's going to add a little bit of kind of dirt right to the roof here. I'm going to wash that out quite a bit with some whites. So I'm just going to have that look a little bit stained, but not super. And then I'm going to add in some greens. And I almost want to use the same green, so I'm just going to grab that part that I haven't really done anything with yet. I'm going to add that back in. Just a little bit. And then let's saturate it a little bit more, darken it some, so we can get some of that up here. You'll notice I'm kind of tapping quite a bit. And I like to just sort of touch it, just kind of touch it a little bit and get a little bit of, just a little bit of that pigment. And I don't want it to like take over, but I just want it to kind of, I'm trying to get as much contrast as possible. So I get the value contrast, but I also get the color temperature contrast between the hues. And I've already kind of messed it up here. So I'm going to zoom in, get my eraser out again, and I'm just going to, oops, too much. I'm just going to clean up this one a little bit because it's kind of messing it up. So I didn't really want so much green there. I think that's fine. So I'm just going to come in with some browns and just give myself a little variation in the color, especially near that shadow. Just kind of like it's stained a little bit. put that down a touch. There we go. Okay, I'll just bring this to the edges. Okay, and then I'm going to dry that layer again. And I'm just going to kind of pull this down. I want to kind of get rid of a lot of that green. So I'm going to mix in some blues and some oranges just to kind of pull that green back. A little more pigment. It's just like a little stain on that wall. That's not bad. Let's pull it a little bit. Then I think there's too much red on here, so I'm going to come in and kind of wash out some of that red. Just so it's not so, but I do want it to have some kind of pigment, and so I'm just going to add kind of a tan in there. That's still way too bright, so let's darken that tan up a little bit. Okay, now I'm just going to hit some blacks and whites. So I'm actually going to just do over the top of this, and let's just kind of paint in some highlights and shadows. Right now I'm just doing some shadows. So I've got just kind of like a gray. It's got a lot of water in it. The nice thing about doing this on a separate layer is that it's no longer mixing with everything in the same way that the colors are mixing, so it's just kind of blending down. Now I'll probably make it a little bit less intense by coming in and lowering the opacity a little bit. But right now I'm just going to kind of drop this in a little bit, kind of knock everything back. Let's add some white and some of these highlights. Like the top edges. I don't really like how that washes out. But I haven't done a blending mode yet. And so we'll kind of hit that blending mode in a minute. Just trying to get some areas where you can kind of pay attention to things. Just brighten them up a little bit. Okay, now let's drop that down a touch, and then let's try overlay. And just knock it back so it's not so much. I'm just going to flip through a couple of these. A hard light I like. Let's stick with hard light. Okay, there we go. And so real quick, you can kind of see that. And if I want to, I can take this over to Photoshop, and I can do some hue saturation level adjustments and things like that. I'm going to come in on this shadow layer here, and I'm going to knock some of these back a little bit so they're kind of fading off into the background. It's probably a little bit too much. I just kind of want them to not be as noticeable, so I'm just going to be a touch much, so I'm just going to kind of water that down a little bit with some white. Next time, but I still want that kind of grayish, grayed out, don't pay attention to me color. There we go. So you can see how it turned out there. and I'll show you with and without. So here's without the kind of highlights and shadows. This one I can probably turn down a little bit more still, just to knock it back a little bit more. And here's without the watercolor. There's just the flat colors. I'll get rid of my background here, and I'll show you just one of these without any flat colors. So let's go with the one and no flat colors. So you can see it's just the pencil, and then I just brought in different flat layers, and then I colored those flat layers with watercolor layer, and then I colored that watercolor layer with some highlights and shadows, and that gives us our scene. All right, I'll catch you guys later. You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com. Follow me, and I will post more things on stuff. So, and you can always check out. You can always check things out at CoreyKerr.com/online, and that'll get you all kinds of different stuff. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.